I've been using Photoshop for so long and Adobe tools in general. You get to the point where it just feels like an extension of myself, like a paintbrush laying on your table or something. I always loved music, as far as listening to it, but I never thought of it as something I could do. That was like other people did that. My dream was like, oh, to make like album covers and poster art, like the stuff that I had been exposed to, my dad's vinyl collection and stuff. I'm Scott Hansen. I create music as Tycho. In '95, I was like 18. I came to school at USF and I met these guys who were really into electronic music. We'd go to like raves and shows and I really connected with it. Drum machines and samplers, that actually seemed like something that was accessible to me. It's the same with visuals. Like I drew obsessively all throughout my childhood, but like I couldn't get the ideas that I had in my head down on the paper because I just didn't have the skill or the patience. And then the second I got a computer, I'm like, oh, this is it. And I got Photoshop, I think 1995. And once I had that, I was just like off to the races. I just remember immediately like the idea of undo and the idea of these stark contrasts and lines spoke to me because I think that whole time I had been a huge fan of graphic design. I just didn't understand what it was. Later, I recognized you were drawn to graphic design in these like geometric forms and the rigidity and the kind of forms that come along with that. Adobe as a concept, their tools have been the cornerstone of my creative process for about 30 years now or so. It's the first thing I learned on and it's all I've ever used. It kind of has defined my workflow and I think in a lot of ways has defined the output. Photoshop feels like an extension of myself. I've never thought of myself as having these like grand concepts. Like I don't think like I want this to happen, it's gonna look like this, and like from the moment of inspiration till the end, it's like you saw that vision. The song Awake was really one of those moments. I remember working on it, like I think we had dinner and then I went and started working at like, I don't know, 9 or 10 and I stayed up all night. And I remember my wife woke up and I was like, you gotta listen to this. And she's like, where'd that come from? And it's just like, it happened overnight. I think there's something about that space that you get into that's like an unconscious mode where you're just like half asleep and you're like in a dream state. If you can try to get yourself into that and you're not thinking and analyzing and you're not so intentional in the moment that you're just like letting things happen, I think that's the most important, at least that's the most fertile ground for inspiration. Some of my earlier work was far, there's like really a lot of organic textures and scanned elements. I was really obsessed with like making things look real, like they were paper or something, Photoshop opened all that up with the layering and the blending modes and stuff. This is me experimenting with taking that to the logical extreme. This is like the beginning of Dive era when I just started working on the graphics for this, and you can see the iterative process of the Dive single cover. And then it all came together right here. That was the final version. A big part of it is just making a huge mess and kind of getting lost in there and being kind of like disoriented to the point where you're like, okay, like if I move this, and I just start to see these things, especially in Photoshop, the process is so experimental and sort of emergent. This thing will evolve out of the process, I think even more than music. I think music has to be more intentional because you have to sit there and play these specific notes, whereas Photoshop, things will just come out of it that you never intended, and you're like, whoa, that looks so cool. Hold on, well, I'm not gonna be able to find it. Sorry, what was the question? Oh, it's loud. Get that down a little. So there's an example, and then we will turn on the delay. Get that dimension to it. And then that kind of puts it in like more of an abstract kind of like unknown, like an otherworldly space. It's like putting grain or, like taking a scan of a piece of paper and putting it in lighten mode over a composition in Illustrator. You give it that like texture and grain and that physicality, and it puts it in real space that I think resonates with people because they want to think of these things as being real. Because I love the tools so much, I never have block. I always am willing to sit down and work with them. For me, the block comes when it's time to to take something that is compelling to me and turn it into a song or an arrangement or a composition, basically, like turning it into something that's like ready for the outside world. So that's what we're in the process of doing right now for Saturday, is figuring out exactly what songs we're gonna play and how does that represent the project. We're at the historic Castro Theater, and they renovated it, and we're playing one of the first shows, so it's a huge honor to be here. 2006, I moved to this neighborhood over on Dolores Park and built a little studio there and made 4 albums. This is my neighborhood. I love coming back here, it's amazing. I want the show to be really immersive and like cinematic. I just want people to get lost in the connection between the visuals and the performance and the music. I hope it reminds them of when they first heard these songs or some meaningful moment in their lives when the music resonated with them. I knew that my life pursuit was going to be expressing myself creatively. My entire life and my entire career has been finding ways to overcome impediments to getting my vision out into the world.
I can't tell you how much this means to us. This is just such an amazing night. This is incredible.
When I first found the tools that ended up becoming the core of my workflow, like Photoshop, I realized I was made to create. The tools are so good now, the barrier to entry is so low. You have to get yourself to learn those tools and practice, and you'll find your vision and you'll find your voice, and I think there's never been a better time to be creative.